Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. My name's Thos Ribbits, and in homage to many of the great musical films of the past, in this episode I'm going to be entirely dubbed by Marnie Nixon. Well, it's not always that we here on Musical Talk get to watch a show through various iterations, but one that we have been following is the marvellous 4-star Quentin Dentin show. Of course, you'll remember that I've spoken to Henry Carpenter, the creator of the show, last year in Edinburgh when it was on then, and subsequently as he's been reworking it and redeveloping it. And a few weeks ago, in a special episode, I spoke to Henry and also to Hannah Elsey, the producer of the show and former director of it in Edinburgh, talking about how it was coming to London. Because it is. Next week, that's the 16th of May, right up until the 28th of May, the Quentin Dentin show is back in London, in a slightly revised form. And whereas in that episode of Musical Talk a few weeks ago, I spoke specifically to the writer and to the producer, in today's episode we're going to be talking to some of the actors, some of the dancers, and the director and choreographer, a different group of people who are, if you like, at the sharp end, as you'll be seeing their work directly on the stage because they'll be there performing it. And it's an interesting mix. We'll be talking to the new Quentin himself, because Luke Lane will now be taking up the part in London instead of Henry, who performed it in Edinburgh. So he's new to the piece. But to contrast with that, we'll also be talking to Shauna Riley, who was in the Edinburgh production and is now also in the London production. So you've got new people and older people. Following on from that, you'll also hear from Caldonia Walton. She's the director and the choreographer, although she was one of the dancers in the show last year. And finally, we'll be talking to Felix Denton and Lydia Costello, who are the helpers, the dancers, in the new London production. So lots of different people with lots of different roles and lots of different experiences, all coming together for this latest version of the marvellous Quentin Dentin show. As it says on the Arts Theatre website, that's where it's going to be in London, the cult hit Edinburgh Fringe rock musical is reborn in London. I'm very excited about this. I'm looking forward to it immensely. And I hope as you listen to these interviews, and some of the songs in between, that you'll get excited too. So, let the show commence. That's the Quentin Dentin show. Musical Talk.
My name is Luke Lane, and I'm playing Quentin Dentin.
Now, Quentin Dentin, I can't help but notice, is the title character of the Quentin Dentin show.
Yes,
which
he
does
is indeed.
Suggest quite a lot rests on your shoulders.
Yeah.
How did you join the show? Did you see it when it was in Edinburgh? Have you seen any of its previous iterations?
No, the only bits that I've seen have been online. So I just auditioned along with lots of other people in the Rich Mix here about a month and a half ago. And I was on tour, actually. I was doing a TIE tour of Robin Hood. Thigh slapping good fun for 5 months, and I was coming to the end and I was just auditioning for every and anything for when I was finished, dying to come off the road, 5 months. And I came and had an audition. So they, told me that I was having it the day after I finished tour.
Gosh.
Which was
tiring?
Really great, yeah, but my voice was knackered from tour. But anyway, I came in and I had researched and listened to everything that was online and clips of the guys doing it in Edinburgh and doing it here a year ago, but only what was up there. So other than that, I had never seen it before, just the few songs, Get Happy and things like that. But yeah, so it's been a learning on the job.
So you're pulling your Quentin directly from the text, essentially, aren't you? Which,
yeah.
Of course, is a great acting position.
Sure.
How does Quentin... Because obviously I've spoken to Henry on previous occasions, and I saw him in Edinburgh last year. Yeah. So I have Henry's Quentin in my head. There's a sentence I wasn't expecting to say this morning. But how does he strike you?
Yeah, well, it was funny because in seeing the clips, I saw Henry as well. But Henry at that point in the clips had bright white hair, and
he was a proper platinum blonde.
He was platinum, yeah. Blondes have more fun and all. I didn't even realise it was when I came in for my audition. I didn't realise that was Henry, or that he had played Quentin. And then he told me in my recall. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But listening to the clips and things like that, I'm very different to Henry anyway. We have very different voices, and we're very different performers in general.
And physically very different.
And
physicality is an important part of it. Isn't it? Forgive me, you're tall, slim, and dark.
Yeah.
And handsome.
Well,
I know you can't say.
Stop, I'm blushing. You can't see me on the microphone, but
you have to be charismatic. I mean, it seems to me that whatever Quentin is in whatever iteration and your performance, he's got to be bigger than life, larger than life.
Absolutely.
So I interrupted you. Please.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So when I was listening to the recordings, I knew that the vocal quality was going to be very different, just because we don't sound alike. But it was funny. The initial things that you can see, there's obviously a lot of Bowie in there. Listening to some of the tracks, there's a bit of Mick Jagger, and the more I'm listening, and the things that I have planned to do in certain numbers are very strutting around stage, that kind of thing, in some of the rockier numbers. But my main go-to, whether that was just because I was listening to the cast album or whatever, was the lead player from Pippin.
Oh, really?
Rather than, Frankenfurter
Yes.
from Rocky Horror, which is, where you can see a lot of parallels there. But maybe it was just I had been listening to the revival cast of Pippin quite a lot, and it's that same sort of function, the almost narrator, dark side, pretending to befriend, but actually have your own motives.
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, he's nobody. I don't think he's anyone's friend.
No, but it's that kind of
and we're talking Pippin here. Yeah.
Pippin, and but it's lulling him into the false sense of security in order to get your own way. And those I see lots of direct links. So it's quite. And then when I was talking to those guys, they were like, "Oh yeah, that's interesting." That wasn't on.
But
mine.
I think that's a very interesting interpretation, because Pippin is so much about the emptiness of life.
Yeah.
If it's not about that, what is it about?
Exactly, and particularly the revival cast. So as opposed to Ben Vereen looking at Bettina Miller and her portrayal on it, because I saw my parents live in California, and I saw the first national tour. With the original Pippin.
Rub it in,
it was great. But that portrayal was obviously, it wasn't Bettina Miller doing it, but seeing all the clips, it was a little bit more mechanical than I had seen the clips of Ben Vereen do it. So that was a big influence, and obviously you can't get away from the Frankenfurter link.
Well, yes.
Which is definitely there, and I'm unashamedly enjoying that.
It's a fusion meal, isn't he, Quentin, in a way?
Yeah, exactly. So I love that. I love the film. So it's funny, because looking at it, so much of what I would think of when I think of Frankenfurter is embedded in the costume, embedded in the the
Such
whole
as it
outfit.
is, a costume. Yes.
Exactly. But those kind of the bridges and the whole thing, and that would be fun in and of itself to do. But so he's very different than looking at Quentin's costume that we're doing now, and how does that then affect everything else that comes after it? So he'll be a bit different than you saw him in Edinburgh, definitely. So you'll be in for a treat, hopefully.
I hope so. I'm looking forward to it. I loved it in Edinburgh, but I'm very excited by the fact that it now has a professional cast, and it's coming to the West End, and it's all been rewritten ever so slightly as well.
Mm-hmm. New songs, new ending.
Slightly more enhanced Quentin-esqueness.
Yeah.
There's more. But I suppose a question I've got for you is that Quentin, it seems to me, dances on the side of a coin, or the edge of a coin might be a better way of doing it, in the sense that you could, from the script, it seems to me, read him as entirely funny, or entirely cruel, and obviously the balance to be struck is somewhere between the two.
Yeah.
How and where are you striking it? Or is that still yet to be determined as the rehearsals go on?
Well, it could certainly change. Obviously we have a month and a bit still to go, but for me it is exactly that. Is he cruel? Is he funny? But there is obviously humour, and if there isn't any humour in the piece, it's going to be a very dry piece.
Yes, and he would be an absolutely unbearable.
Yeah. But he's
character.
very serious about himself. So
yes.
What is different, as far as I'm aware, or as far as I've been told from Edinburgh, having not seen it, is the start and the end are different, to contextualise Quentin a bit more concretely.
He sort of came in and hijacked a straight play after about a quarter of the way through in the old version.
Exactly.
Which is a marvellous conceit, but obviously it's being a bit more musical theatre-ish now.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, I understand it was understood that the audiences let it be known that they needed to have more...
That they wanted to have a connection with him and it wasn't a fault of Henry's in any way of performance. No. It was just the way it was constructed. You didn't understand who Quentin was or why he was doing the things he was doing.
That was the point, I think, but that point now needs to be reconsidered. Yeah. So what we have is a drive for him. So that allows for me to think of him as quite a serious character in a heightened situation, which is where the comedy will lie anyway. So in certain numbers, Quentin will completely lose himself in this rock form that the songs are taking and really feel great about himself, and taking it to a heightened, there'll be some riffing at the end of one song, I won't tell you which,
but that will be a little bit so over the top that even the people on stage will be a bit...
I can see where your Mick Jagger references are coming from.
Exactly,
Yes.
That's a huge influence there. So that he's taking himself so seriously, and this is so important to him, despite how ridiculous it's coming across, that's where the humour lies. He's not, cracking jokes left, right and centre,
No.
but he's learned things to do so straight that it seems ridiculous in the context of the show.
That's interesting to me that you've taken that interpretation. The crueler elements of him, and they are quite cruel.
Yeah.
I mean, it was described, the Edinburgh show was described by Henry to me, that he comes in, takes two average people and tortures them for 40 minutes.
Sure.
I mean, that's quite a blunt way of describing it, and there's a lot more on the bone than that. But he did describe today that this iteration, this version, is meaner and funnier. Mm-hmm. How do you find meanness in your soul? Do tell me that you're not a bad man, but I'm taking that for granted. But, it is an ask. You need the sugar to gild that.
Yeah, to
sweeten the pill a bit,
feel something. It's really coming from this idea that, for people that have seen it before and they understand the kind of through line of the show is to get these two regular people to conform into these desensitized almost...
Which is described as happiness, but as you say, is in fact merely being forced into society's most average position.
Exactly. So, but Quentin and his friends in the show are already at that stage. So where I'm taking this from is, if you follow the world in which we're in, Quentin at some point was the same as Nat.
Oh, now this is interesting. Go on.
So he's trying to get to his next form, to rise the ranks of this world that he's now found himself in. And in order to do that, he's trying to get Nat and Keith to conform. And this is his only goal. So his cruelness...
His own self-deliverance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So now he has that sort of...
He's a cruel Buddhist.
Yeah, well...
No, he's not, but
so that's what he's trying to get to.
Yes.
That's what he's trying to get to. He's trying to get to this one thing, and that's what's important. And considering, if you take into account that he has been desensitized in this way, that compassion no longer exists because he's gone through what Keith and Nat are going throughout the show already.
Yes.
But obviously it's taken much more effect, or potentially more quickly. And therefore his cruelness is completely based on his own sense of self-importance and his own wants and needs and his own selfishness.
Yes, he's selfish entirely, isn't it? Yes.
So that's a thing, as opposed to having a character that's just cruel, that the show says he's cruel, so he's cruel. I can now see, okay, if it was the one thing in the world that you're aiming for, the one thing in the world that you have any control over, is this, how can I see myself pushing further than I would normally, if I was to look on the outside, see was rational? Obviously, in this context, it's all heightened. But I can see that. I can see the want and the putting the blinders on and just looking after one thing and really letting everything else be compromised by that.
This is really interesting to me because, funny enough, the interpretation, and I appreciate that I'm working on the Edinburgh performance, but I didn't see him as someone who'd been through the process. I saw him as someone who was coming down from above and handing down the process. So I saw him as an authoritarian figure who was not part of the world he was playing in, but was trying to sort of blunt its edges for some purpose unseen.
Sure.
And there was some suggestion that there was somebody higher than him.
Yes.
So is your interpretation of him having been through the system already and now trying to ascend, shall we say, to the next level of sanctity, for want of a better phrase?
Exactly.
Is that something that you've interpreted from the script, or is it something that you know? How did you get to that interpretation?
I've taken that from the script. So bringing
it's
into
interpretive.
It's interpretive. Your idea, your sense that he has someone above him is very clear in the show. It's now in
much
the
more
show.
overt, yes.
And we have that presence is now featuring in the show. So in the new scenes that weren't in Edinburgh, that relationship is on stage. Quentin and his hire.
I hope it's played by a holographic head of Sir Laurence Olivier, like Day Clark's Time.
Yes, well, we tried. We did try.
Well, he must be in a cupboard somewhere.
He's not being used. So yeah, that will be a feature, and it's from there, because I'm looking at the script completely new. I didn't have any of the baggage from.
But that's fantastic.
Else.
In a way, it's much better for you to be in that position, I think, almost, than having seen it. So
absolutely.
But I'm just fascinated by your interpretation, which doesn't quite charm me mind, but is absolutely plausible and works.
Yeah.
I'm quite interested in this idea. Then, forgive me. I hope you don't mind pursuing this.
Go.
But if they're having their individuality, this is the couple, Keith and Nat, sort of removed to become homogenous, if you like. So they lose, if you like, actually their real sense of self. Then it's quite interesting to me that they become this vacuum whereby actually they only have limited things left, which is, I suppose, the moral of the story, isn't it? But actually, if you conform and get taken into society, you lose all self-worth. So all you've got are the trappings, or possibly it makes you into a monster, whereby you are looking for the next stage up. So, sorry, I'm just speaking as I think.
No,
so
that's absolutely
apologies.
fine. It's absolutely fine. It's the same way that I was getting through it.
I like your interpretation, but it's really interesting to me. So, what is the most difficult thing about being Quentin?
Well, it's funny. If you had asked me maybe 3 weeks ago, I would have said what I thought was going to be the most difficult is coming in to do a role. And this is more of the actor side rather than the creative side. It was coming in to do a role that has already, one, been done, two, been done by the creator, lyricist, and book writer. And that person is going to be in the band and teaching you the music. That was quite a daunting thing, but actually, now that we've gone through all the songs, myself and Henry, he's been very, very gracious to me. He's been very open to new ideas, and I was worried that, it's his baby. He's been,
but you're
doing this. But exactly, and they wanted me to come in, but I had no interest in recreating it. I had no interest in going, tell me everything that happened in the last version, and I want to do that. That's not what I would ever want to do.
It's got to be about reinterpretation, hasn't it?
Yeah. So then adding the new thing. So that was my fear, to be perfectly honest, was that I'm a very different singer to him, and I'm a very different performer, as we said at the start. But how willing will he be, and the creative team in general, be to allowing me to stretch out and see what else I can play with. But he has been great about that. In terms of Quentin, trying to get this perfect, it's at the start, because I now have him unraveling throughout the show, as well as everything else behind it. He's unraveling and showing his true colours. But at the start,
his true weaknesses, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. At the start, to get him to be this still robotic character is something that I find more challenging than bringing him out, because the numbers are so helpful with bringing him out, but making sure that I start at a level that isn't too bombastic, so that I won't be able to top myself as the show goes on. Tempering it.
It's the power of stillness, isn't it? I mean, certainly, maybe this, if we're talking references, because you've already mentioned them, this is the difference between Bowie and Jagger, isn't it, really? But
absolutely.
Actually, Bowie is about owning a space through silence, or at least stillness.
Yeah.
And Mick Jagger owns it through
sheer
touching every element of it.
Absolutely.
And which is why that very odd video where the two of them sing together, dancing in the streets, is it?
Yes.
It's a very odd, it's a chalk and cheese video.
You're really seeing two completely different things.
Yeah.
Oil and water together, happily, but strangely.
But you wouldn't want to see it twice.
No, it's fine having that in the vault.
So you're aware of that stillness and power, but you're also aware of and your natural tendency is towards the Jaggery end rather than the Bowie end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is interesting, because Henry's is the complete reverse. He's much more Bowie-ish.
Yeah. And that's certainly not to say that it's going to be, the show is written in a specific style.
Of course.
And I would never want to be like, I think rather than taking Bowie's influence, you should change. It's clearly there, and it makes it far more fun for me to be. It would be hard for me to find real interest in doing something that I'm too comfortable with.
Yes, of course.
And that stillness is great for me, because if that doesn't work, it doesn't allow me to do the things that I'm more comfortable in. It will make them far more difficult if I'm lazy at the start. If I'm lazy at the start, or I'm not sure about what I'm doing, then I'll have to push far too hard, be far too needy to try to top myself. And again,
it's a balance, isn't it? Yes. It's knowing how to. It's all tightropes, really. Mm-hmm. Can I ask? The show has, I think, a quite a kernel of anger in it at its heart.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to plug into that anger? Is it an anger you share, or can you? Is it an anger you can fake? Is it something you're aware of and you're trying to let it inform your performance?
Yes. Well, it's the message of the piece is, it's being written by, my contemporaries, obviously,
Yes.
which rarely I get to do the work of my direct contemporaries, and looking at. And I think it would be true of any generation when you look at them. People in their 20s, in their early mid-20s, late 20s, are all trying to figure out how they fit in society now that they're thrown in at the deep end.
Now they're expected to. Yes.
Yeah, and they're expected to fit into society, and what that means of them losing themselves, of what they need to do, what they should do, are all very confusing. And that angst is very clear. Having, I went from school to university, then went straight into my master's program, and graduated last January.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And then I moved to London.
Yeah.
Right? And I was in Exeter beforehand, which is lovely, but I grew up in the city. I grew up in just outside Amsterdam. So I was used to city life, but that's lovely when you're 17 and you get to go to your nice, comfortable home. And you don't have to worry about paying your rent, and then you're trying to live in this world. You're trying to live and be an actor and a musician.
It's a bit hand to mouth anyway, isn't it? But then do it in the most expensive city in this part of Europe.
Exactly, and that angst and that kind of frustration, I can safely say, I can feel.
So there are some seams you can tap into.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to commit myself say, I'm as crazy as anything else. But yeah, that anger, I think anyone my age and in around my age can relate to, and it is this kind of culty thing where we do love it. We love this kind of anti-hero because we all feel a little bit, if you follow along with my interpretation, it comes across clearly that he is also trying to get to his next stage, and he's being frustrated by that, and Nat and Keith are being frustrated by their monotony in their lives or things not happening. I think that's quite a close to the bone thing for anyone in London particularly, but anywhere, that you always feel at any age, am I in the right place? I was supposed to be over here by the time I got to 40. I was supposed to be over all of those things.
Can I tell you, as a man in middle age, those feelings don't go away. They just get tempered by better dinners.
Fantastic.
No, it's not. It's appalling, but there we are. That's real life. Forgive me. What I love is the fact that you're a very thoughtful, thinking actor, and I think this character has so many levels to it, but you need to bring all those layers, and it seems to me you're doing that. So one last question, I think, if that's okay, which is that he is the bringer of speech marks, good news, even if that's good news and happiness is utterly vacuous.
Yeah.
Well, he has historically spoken in all these kind of sort of rather twee aphorisms which mean precisely nothing.
Yeah.
And obviously send up that entire genre of postcard and poster that you see on various walls in places that should know better. But that suggests an inner emptiness as well. I mean, is he a character that you could ever improvise in?
It would... I would hope so. Yeah, we haven't really gotten to that stage, and there are certainly productions that I've done where that's more important, to be, because Quentin is by his very nature rigid. So he's following lines, and we're doing a lot of that in the rehearsal room to make sure that it is almost on a grid, but as the show unravels, that it opens that up a lot. So
he goes from binary to analog by the sound of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. He starts completely losing it. So he's going from, I've been taught, in my mind, and when I'm speaking to Caldi, it's this idea that he's learned everything. He's read the manual of how to do this job. He's read the manual of how to do this show, and he knows his lines, and he knows the tricks that he's going to pull. And as those don't work the way he's planned, he has plan A, B, and C. Once he's exhausted A, B, and C, he can try A, B, and C in different ways, but that's all he's learned. So he comes at everything formulaically. So I'm going to say this, we're going to have this conversation, I'm going to be nice to you, I'm going to be mean to you, I'm going to sing a song, we're going to play this game. But once that all stops working and you can see him starting to crack, that's when the real improvisation comes in, and that's when the work for me becomes slightly different. So it's one thing to go, I am in this, and I'm in this box or this tunnel, and I need to make sure I'm going here, and I'm hitting everything because this is the way he would have learned it. To now he's someone who's never or can't remember ever having his own choice, and he's losing it because something's now important to him again. And that would be easier to improvise than
the box version.
Yeah. Which it's possible it would be very heady, I would imagine, to think, I have to think of new things to do, but I have to remember I'm in these confines. So maybe that is an exercise that we could do, not just thinking...
Good luck with that.
Yeah. I'll have a breakdown. Yeah.
Well, Luke, thank you very much. I'd love to continue this conversation for longer, but you do have a rehearsal, I'm afraid to say, and I'm ruining the creative juices. But it's been genuinely interesting to hear you interpret this character, and I look forward very, very much to seeing it. So, first of all, thank you for speaking to me, and finally, all power to your elbow.
Thank you very much.
Everything's better in space. Water is wetter in space. Live out your dreams where nobody screams. There's literally no pressure in space.
So hi, my name is Sean O'Reilly and I'm playing Nat in the Quentin Denton show.
Now, you were in the original show, or at least the Edinburgh production of it last year. Can I ask, how does it feel to be back now in London for the London production?
Absolutely.
In the same role, but with some new cast and some old cast?
Yes, it's quite exciting actually. When I came on for Edinburgh, I was one of the newbies.
Yes.
In fact, I was the only newbie.
Oh, were you? Oh.
Caldy came on as a dancer, so there's one dancer and one actor added, and everyone else had known the show for quite a while. It's been like its 4th or 5th cycle now, which is quite cool because the show seems to always be developing, and each time it just gets cooler and cooler. So yeah, when I was all fresh and new, Edinburgh was really exciting, 27 shows, and it was just terrifying.
Day in, day out, wasn't it?
Absolutely,
yes.
Amen. But this time it's a whole different dynamic because now I'm kind of not part of the furniture, but I know the show.
Yes.
And it's really nice to get some fresh faces and fresh ideas in, because even though the show hasn't changed that much per se at the moment, already you see that even the girls who are playing the friends are starting to bleed in new choreography, and
Jamie
was quite new as well. He came on the day before we went to Edinburgh.
Oh, right.
Which was
fresh.
Yes, very fresh. So this is his first time being part of the rehearsal process, because last time he was just thrown into the deep end. Yes.
Oh, right.
Unfortunately, we had an illness that had to be dropped out straight
happen
before.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, yes, for Jamie, it's going to be quite exciting as well. Unfortunately, he's not here today, but he's finding his movement and his own kind of imprint on it this time as well. And we got a new director, and it's just crazy.
So, for you then, as a sort of returning interpretee, should we say, is a new director, a new cast, it must be a good thing to a degree, because it makes you look at the characters from a way that you haven't seen, including the characters that you've already been in.
Definitely.
But are there also negative sides? Is it hard to sort of turn off elements of the personality that you thought should be featured, which perhaps now is slightly less necessary, or is being overshadowed by another emotional response that you're having because the story's changed, the actors have changed, the director has, all the changes.
So many elements.
It's such what I love about it is, it's every day will be different, but
of course, yes. In terms of coming back, it's very hard to shake off the bones you've already set.
Yes.
If you we worked for 4 months, including Edinburgh, May to the end, straight into September. It became never routine, because as you said yourself, it's quite live and it can change, and audiences will change stuff and actors themselves will try something different. But of course, after that nearly 30 shows, you do kind of feel a little bit comfortable. So maybe it's actually quite good, because I know if any of my directors from college heard me say the word comfortable, they'd probably slice my head off. So it's nice.
Quite strict.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, but wonderful people. But it's nice to kind of feel someone else's pull on the script, someone else's give or take. Maybe you don't play that as much anymore. Maybe you have to play that more. Maybe that bit's not about you anymore. Maybe that bit is more about you than you realised. And it's cool because it's just a new, fresh shake on it.
And is there enough wiggle room in the text for you to actually say, well, I think actually I could interpret the character slightly differently. I could make her a bit more energetic or a bit more lethargic or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not just from a director, is it? I mean, there's this idea that, the old 1920s film directors, that people sit in their canvas chair wearing jodhpurs and speaking through a
We have never really had a director like that.
I should hope not.
No, thank goodness.
But it is, it is a collaborative effort, and you, as the actor, are the source, if you like, of the character. I appreciate this, the text, etc. But what wriggle room have you given yourself?
Well, I guess we're in our second week back in the part now, and I think the muscle memory has jolted me back to the Edinburgh kind of position at the moment. But even looking at the text, Henry has done a lot more work in terms of music this time, and myself and Jamie also get to sing due to the magic microphone.
He has mentioned the golden magic microphone.
Magic microphone. So that's a new element as well, because it brings a more... We were always, when we were in Edinburgh, we thought of it as a play being like kind of invaded by a musical.
I described it exactly as a hijack.
Yes, that's the one.
It looks like one kind of play, and then suddenly it isn't.
Of course, and I think this time, the new dynamic to the show this time is that it is a musical from the start. It's more in the hands of Quentin and the friends, and it's more like myself and Jamie are being taken on a ride rather than them coming into our home.
Yes.
So I think in terms of wiggle room in the script, it's about seeing the whole show has changed, like the parameters have been shifted and everything's a little bit more loosey-goosey in that sense.
Oh, there's a term I don't know, but I understand it.
It might be an Irish phrase. So yeah, it kind of gives myself and Jamie a little bit of a different dynamic, because it's a little bit more individuals focused rather than just the relationship, because first it was kind of, maybe Quentin was there to fix the relationship in order to make them happy, whereas now it seems that he doesn't really care about their relationship, which makes Nat and Keith care about it even more, which is funny, because they're being looked at as individuals rather than a pair, rather than a couple, and so it makes that kind of whole falling apart of the relationship a bit more emotional, a bit more tentative.
Well, I'm glad you said that now, because there is a danger, or there has been a danger with the two in the relationship, shall we say, that because their play is subverted, historically, that, forgive me, you are sort of everyman characters.
Absolutely. We're Joe Soap and his wife.
I'm afraid so, yes.
Yes, of course.
Or Josephine Soap and her husband.
Yes, we can put it that way. I like that.
Let's get the billing right.
Yes.
So there was always an element, I don't mean this rudely, but not cipher isn't the word, but you had to be average.
Absolutely.
And to make average people appealing is actually a great skill, and you managed that very successfully in Edinburgh. The poignancy, I think, that you were rewarded with at the end is whether or not you're both, as a couple, this was the Edinburgh show, going to go through the process or not. I'm not going to say how that ended, but that's where the and I will say poignancy again. I think that's where the poignancy in your relationship was. It sounds to me like it's been well, first of all, can I pay testament to your performance, because you were able to make those characters nice. People liked them.
Yes.
And they felt real in the context of a heightened play.
Absolutely.
But there wasn't a huge amount of emotional beef on the bone, meat on the bone. But it sounds to me that they're slightly more thoughtfully written, might be a better way.
Yes, absolutely.
So how are you grappling with that?
I see what you mean. I think, apart from the script and the songs changing, I think myself and Jamie got very little time to play and very little time to go through the rehearsal period, and I think that will change the way we portray Keith and Nat this time around, because of course I'd been working with another actor right up until the 2 days before we went to Edinburgh, and so even though Jamie was absolutely cracking, he came straight in, knew his lines absolutely deadly, and we went straight and we did it. we didn't really get to work on the actor's homework,
It was a welded relationship rather than a forged one.
Yes, of course. So it's kind of like this is where Jamie had to fit in, and I think it's going to be, for both of us, but more for him, it's going to be a massive change because he's going to get to play his side of it and bring in, he's very kind of loose. He's a dance student, and so he's more of kind of loose in his feeling and his movement, and I think that will bleed in and feed in so much more into their relationship now. I think Nat's going to be even more heightened, a bit more OCD, a little bit more trying to make a square peg fit into a circle, and I think he's going to be more relaxed and just they're a bit more jagged in their ways rather than just, as you said, black and white, Joe Soap and Josephine. Because they were kind of and are kind of based on Brad and Janet in a sense from Rocky Horror. Everyone's always kind of commented on that from Edinburgh and from the Rich Mix shows. So I think this time there'll be those maybe a little bit more colour added.
But there's also, funny enough, that sort of American Gothic Darby and Joan about them, because they are sort of... well, I tell you what, in Edinburgh, I did get the impression they were unhappy, as just discontent.
Absolutely.
It was
it seemed like a harsh treatment,
Yeah, there wasn't much in their relationship, but they clung on to each other, shall we say, and but that made the potential shattering all the more plausible.
Yes.
It's interesting that actually that there's a slightly more, or the potential for an organic relationship with a flaw in it of some variety.
Absolutely.
Have you decided what that flaw is yet? Is it a failing relationship, or is it just a discontent again, or is it too early to say? Because we are right at the beginning of the rehearsal series for you.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that our writer has kind of looked at in terms of their relationship is that a lot of young people meet at college, and it's a wild ride of fun and work and
the S word
and all that kind of and like loads of parties and loads of fun and a lot of time to kind of celebrate exams and to celebrate other things and graduating and stuff, and then
students are time rich.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember.
And way back when. I feel like that a bit myself. But
far too young.
But it feels like they kind of, and I suppose a lot of students might find it as well, is that you come out of college such a changed person from in your first year, your second year, your third year, your fourth year, and you're still with that person. And sometimes that works wonderfully and you grow together. But I think with Keith and Nat, at the moment we're kind of looking at the thought that maybe Nat has outgrown Keith a little bit. He doesn't really fit her anymore.
I think that will be the way, certainly from the way I saw the performances in the summer.
Yes.
I mean, she's going to go on to become something. And
she's
driving.
Hard
to see that he will.
Yeah, she's driving down the wrong road is the way I like to look at it. She's throwing all her energy and all her effort at a dead end. She's gone into a job that, like, as most people coming out of college that aren't creatives, will just go straight into a job. And in this case, she's a pharmacist, and she thinks she's ticked all the boxes all the way up. She's gone to college, and I've grown up and I've matured, and now I'm a pharmacist and I've graduated and I have the hat and I have the cape and my mum's really proud. And then she doesn't find the happiness that she thought was automatically going to come with. Yes. Like that you get to a certain stage, you're like, cool.
Fulfillment is always one step away, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's a nice way to put it that way. I think she turns 24 and she's working 6 days a week at the job that she studied for 4 or 5 years, and then she's panicked because she's like, well, when does the happiness start? It's not there. And so she's throwing all her energy at something that isn't fulfilling her. Whereas Keith's character is an aloof kind of guy, but doesn't want to be called a hipster, doesn't want to be put in that bracket, he's too hip to be square, whatever way you want to put it. I'm not down with the kids. But it's kind
I'm
of...
not sure I am.
No, neither of us are, we'll be fine. It's kind of a case of he wants to be a writer, but he doesn't know why. He wants
how to apply himself to do it.
Yes, he wants the accomplishment, and he doesn't want to put in the work, and he thinks it's just going to be one day he's going to get up and he'll be like, bye Joe, I know what the story is going to be, but he doesn't.
He's a blacker and a charming waster in a way, isn't he?
Yeah.
But the charm is a little thinner than perhaps he thinks it is.
Absolutely, and I think he can only get away with it for so long, and I think she's willing to change, but he's just still waiting for inspiration. I think that's where they kind of come to loggerheads, and then it seems as the show goes on that the only thing they have is their relationship, but maybe it's not. Right. Yeah. So that's the question.
Back to the poignancy.
Yes, to the poignancy.
Bearing in mind you've now got songs, which you didn't have.
Yes.
You were characters around which other wacky, strange things happen. Mm-hmm. How do you find that? I mean, you're happy singing?
It's really exciting.
The golden microphone holds no fear for you?
No, it's not. It wouldn't be a massive fear. It's... because it's more of a musical now, and I would never have deemed myself a musical kind of gal. I still love a good sing-song.
Judi Dench manages to
she pulls
step
it
on
off.
both sides of the bridge, so you can do that too.
Hey, that's a comparison I like, so we'll go with that. But it's just, I love singing, and I think the little bits that myself and Jamie have really aid the story now. It's like a bit more of a magical edge to it. It's a bit more of a mystery, and there is quite a nice, again, back to the poignancy, there's another little bit where they use the music in their own way now as well, which is kind of new from the new show, and that's quite exciting as well. And
I think ownership, isn't it?
Absolutely. And there's going to be a big, show-stopping end number now as well, so we get to be involved in that. So it's taken a whole new dynamic for us, but it's going to be even more fun. You can't say that dancing and singing isn't fun. I'll give it my best shot.
I look forward to it very much.
Yes.
So we're all looking forward to seeing you revive Nat.
Yes.
In the Quentin Denton show, or Quentin Denton appearing in the Nat show.
Yes.
Because it's how she would see it, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But tell me, if I had to ask you, what is the one difference that you can really see for the London production over the Edinburgh production, that the real standout for you or your character, whichever you prefer?
Absolutely. I think a London show is like Quentin Denton 2.0. I think everyone involved in the project before, and because no one has really left in this cycle. It's more a case of our former dancer Ella has gone to college.
Oh, right.
She's gone to East 15, and we wish her the best, and I know she'll come see it. And she was so involved with it from the very start. She was the original choreographer. And she worked with Caldy, and now Caldy has stepped up to be our director and choreographer, which she thinks is a scary step, but she is so well able for. So good. Caldy is bringing a movement-based direction, which I've never worked with before, which is awesome, to light for this show, which is what it really needs. There's a lot of rapid movement, there's a lot of physical stuff, and Caldy has found this wonderful thing where Nat and Keith are going to be very different physically to Quentin and the friends, and so that'll be something really nice to present to the audience in a more clean-cut way than we did before. Everything's taken a step up. I mean, Hannah's in a completely production-based role now, whereas she's just perfect at that. That's what she's wanted to do, and she's doing a smashing job. Henry has put so much music into it and so much more life, and it's just going to be absolutely cracking. All the bits are falling together, and as for Luke and Lydia and Felix, they're just bringing that new one more bit of push and injection of fun that we need just to make this show slick and stylish and sexy and all the S words. It's going to be brilliant.
You should do the advertising. Yeah, you're very good. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
It's almost as much pleasure as seeing you on stage in London, which I commonly do.
Please do.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having us.
I look forward to seeing you both in this and in other productions.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you so much.
Don't tell me what to do anymore, because I'm stronger now than I ever was before. Oh yeah, and it's a bad, a sad, mad situation. Yeah.
So my name is Caldonia Walton, and I'm the director and choreographer of The Quentin Denton Show.
And your involvement with the Quentin Denton Show goes back quite a long way, because last year I had the pleasure of watching you in a white overall dancing in synchronicity as one of the, I think they're called the helpers, aren't they? They're the kind of
the friends. Yeah,
the friends. That's right. They've been described as Dr. Seussian kind of minions, and I think that's really the best way. You enliven every scene you're in without ever stealing it. Or certainly that's your role in the past. You've gone on to even greater and more august things, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I would like to talk about what it was like being in the show last summer, because it's a dance-heavy piece, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, it was great. It was a fantastic experience to take it to Edinburgh Fringe and be there amongst kind of all these different shows and perform every day. And because it's such a interesting and amusing and fun show to be a part of, it was great. It was, really, really enjoyed it. And very, I was glad I had that role in it, and so that then when I come back, I've got such such knowledge of the show that I can
You've been in the middle of it, haven't you? So,
yeah.
Yes.
So I know it intrinsically, so I can then also build on it.
Can I also just say, however, I had the pleasure of watching you on the Mile last year,
right,
because Henry used to come and perform for about 40 minutes, quite a long gig, in the early evenings quite often. And so I was watching one of those, and I noticed that you and your fellow, dancer, last year, you did this marvellous thing where you would jump off the stage into the crowd and sort of give them leaflets and go with them, and then you bounce back on. But then there was genuinely a synchronicity. I noticed one or other of you would start a movement, and the other one would spot immediately. And I was watching you two from some of the performance to see how you were doing it, because you'd found a way of making it look absolutely seamless. But I wondered, was it on that, bearing in mind that's a slightly less formalised situation being on the platform on the Mile, was that something that you just, because you were working so closely together, you could able to do on site? Or had you said, we've got X number of steps, when I start one, you'll start one, or whatever it is? Or, I mean, how did you do that? Because it looked fabulous.
Good. Yeah, both really.
Oh,
We'd had ideas for choreography, and we'd thought of, we could do this, we could do that, and then one of us would start it and then the other one would follow. There were moments within the songs that we'd worked out choreography, so we'd hear it coming up and we'd be like,
we know this bit.
Let's get back on stage, we need to do that dance move.
Numbers, it's all in triangles, isn't it?
Exactly. Or there were moments where we would just do movement together, and because we knew that how powerful it was for us to both dance at the same time, we would just kind of be like, let's do this move together, and then it was a lot more enjoyable.
That is such an interesting word. The word powerful is really good, because actually, you don't say a thing, do you? Or you didn't say a thing in the version of the story last year, and yet one couldn't take one's own. You sort of come to life, then you did your thing. And it is powerful is a very good word. Power is very much one of the thematic elements of the show, or it certainly was,
yeah, totally.
But I'm very much hiding your light under a bushel, because although you were a performer and a great dancer last year, and you still are, I'm sure, this year you're wearing a double hat, because you are now the director and you are also the choreographer, which is a tall order. But I've already had one compliment from one member of the cast today, saying that you've got this marvellous moving direction, was the way it was described to me. And the person I was speaking to was saying that they were responding to it very positively. So you're winning plaudits. You'll be pleased to know.
Nice.
So tell me, how did you say, I'd like to be the director of that, or were you asked by Hannah, or you knew you were staying with the project?
Yeah, I thought I was just going to stay as a performer, but Hannah called me and said, we'd love you to come on board as the director and choreographer this time, because I had worked very intrinsically with Ella to create a lot of the choreography for the Edinburgh show, and had enjoyed doing a lot of bits of direction during that. So and also because there's going to be a lot more music and a lot more movement throughout the whole of the show. It's
much more of a musical, is the way it's being described. It's got a proper start and a proper ending in a much more musical way, rather than that old sense of it having been a play that was hijacked by a musical.
Yeah.
But does that confound you then, because you know the old version, you were involved in that, and now you're in the new version, so everything you know about the old version is still true, and yet at the same time isn't quite true, because there's a slightly different book and there's a slightly different score, and of course you're doing a slightly different thing in it. So what have been the challenges for you?
I think exactly that, trying to develop the show so that it works for a different cast, so it works with different music, so it works for the journey. Just then, actually, I was teaching some of the choreography, and it's making sure that the choreography is the same but a little bit different, and you can add on to it. We can make it bigger and better and more kind of fantastical for the audience.
It's icing
this time.
The cake, essentially, isn't it? Yes.
Exactly. And also, we've got a lot more time now, because we've got some choreography set from the Edinburgh show. I can then have the time to really fine-tune it and make it even better.
So you are interpolating some of the old stuff. I suppose there's no reason in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, is there?
Yeah, no, definitely. Really just using a lot of the stuff that we had, and then how can we develop it or add little moments in here, because we've got the time to do it, and we've got a lot of the base of the choreography to start with, and then when there's like extra verses and stuff like that, we can think about what we can do with that.
Are you going to miss performing in it?
Yeah, totally. But at the same time, I think because I performed in it so much at Edinburgh Fringe, it's really lovely to come back and be on the other side, and have that chance to really see it from the outside view, rather than actually being in it but trying to choreograph. And
what is the relationship between, I know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear it from you, the relationship between direction and choreography in a piece like this, which is so, dance and music is a very important part of it, and you've already mentioned power in a different context, but they sound like different jobs, and yet at the same time they're not really, and certainly not in a show like this. Are you finding it's an easy fusion? Or do you sometimes have to say, right, I'm taking off director's hat and I'm putting on choreographer's hat?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm more involved with choreography, as in like that's what I usually do.
Yeah, it's my
But I've also, through a lot of my choreography, I've used a lot of drama techniques and theatre techniques. So therefore, I think it is coming throughout the show. I've got to admit, I do find it difficult sometimes when I'm directing the actors at some points because I do heavily lean towards putting movement in when maybe there isn't necessarily needing for it.
But sometimes it's the reverse for the actors, though, isn't it? Because an actor wouldn't necessarily think about using emotion or a movement to delineate a character. So actually, it must be a two-way street.
Yeah, totally.
Where are you finding that threshold? I mean, presumably, because it's a trite thing to say theatre is collaborative, but of course it is collaborative, and it's collaborative at every level. It's not just simply a writer and a composer sit in a room together, or on stage everyone's waiting for the next person along and feeding and helping each other. But actually, in rehearsals, you talk about it, you try it again, try it in different ways. I love the iterations within iterations, which hopefully bring out the best. And then even every night, of course, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
So. But there has to be a threshold where direction meets actor and it moves and changes for each time of performance. Are you finding the engagement easy?
As in between the two? Yeah, I think so, yeah. I think it's interesting what you said about actually getting the actors to move a little bit more. That's something where I can come into it a little bit more, of being like, actually, if you do move forward there, it heightens that line. If you move back because he's come forward, just so that they've got an awareness of their relationship with the kind of strange characters on stage. So I think that's where the two merge, for sure.
And it's a very intimate show as well, isn't it? And presumably when you're that close to your audience, as you were in Edinburgh, and you will be very much so in Above the Arts. I mean, it's a nice venue, but it's you're close. Those small movements and motions, sometimes just even facial tics, play so much more than they would if you're doing in the Palladium. So presumably, do you have that weight upon your shoulders that you know that actually that kind of thing has to be perfect, but in a way that perhaps it wouldn't matter so much if you're doing it at the National?
Yeah, no, definitely. And how the slightest movement says so much about your character, or the body language, or the relationship with them in the space. Yeah, it's something I'm definitely going to work on after I've taught the whole kind of arc of the choreography, how each tiny movement is going to say something different, because obviously you've got that difference between the normal people and the robots. So it's going to be definitely very interesting once we get down to the real fine-tuning, how we can really show that.
It's interesting, several people have used the word robot. Is the word robot because you actually see them as robot androids, or is it because it's a robot in the sense of a dehumanised human, or are they something else again? Because there was a possible interpretation that they were fallen angels in Edinburgh. I mean, is this a directorial view that you've got on the robots, or is that just a shorthand for the other, i.e. the non-human aspect?
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I would say that they are robots.
Oh, you actually think they are?
Yeah,
that's fine.
That's the first,
No, I'm really interested because obviously everyone has a totally different interpretation.
Yeah, and it's something that I express a lot to the girls in order for the friends' characters, in order to get them into character, to understand where they're coming from.
Because they do power up at the beginning in a way, don't they? But I assumed in Edinburgh that was almost because I have to say I saw Quentin, perhaps wrongly, as a sort of an angel with a dirty face, as they used to say, or perhaps a devil with a clean face, depending on how you want to look at him. But therefore he was channeling whatever power he had into bringing the inanimate friends to life, kind of thing. But every interpretation is valid, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Also, let's talk about movement again then. You were I was very interested in the conversation we're having about how movement helps bring out these characters. Luke was saying that, well, we had a discussion on that aspect of Quentin being powerful through stillness, which is very much a Henry thing. Henry was very keen to sort of channel the David Bowie kind of owning a stage by doing nothing.
Yes,
And Luke is very keen on the Mick Jagger end of the market, which is owning the stage by being all over the stage, touching and dancing and being over and being a bigger, larger-than-life character, and actually finding the balance between the two. How are you seeing? I mean, I appreciate Luke is interpreting it and you, a director, interpreting it. Are you finding a way forward in that interpretation of Quentin? Because Quentin is open to different interpretations, isn't he?
Yeah. No, definitely, yeah. Yeah, no, it's very interesting coming at it, like Luke's coming at it from a very different angle. But it's very interesting because, he's bringing a different energy to it, which is great. But I think I'm going to try and merge the two. So you've got this very exuberant rock star character, that's what he thinks of himself inside. But I do believe that there is power in the stillness because of the fact the friends are just so vibrant on the stage. To have stillness with Quentin because he's kind of thinking about his next move.
They're Duracell bunnies, whereas he's a kind of sort of the puppet master.
Exactly, and looking over this whole scene that he's directing.
But once again, you spoke of energy. Luke brings his own energy. His natural tendency is more towards the Jagger. I just use that as shorthand. But presumably that must also have effect on how you then want to pitch the choreography. Because if you've got a bigger character, do you want to tone down other characters' choreography in order to contrast him, or do you actually want them to meet it? Is that fair? Or?
Yeah, totally. I think they meet it.
Oh right, good. You're big on up.
Yeah, definitely, because. We've got a real opportunity here to really overpower Nat and Keith in this situation where these characters have just come out of the walls, come into their life, and they're about to, take them on the ride of their life through all these visualizations and the number test and everything. So it's bringing the style up and the energy up for all those kind of crazy moments that happen within the show.
But once again, that's interesting too, because Nat and Keith are the avatars for Everyman Joe, and presumably they are sort of naturally, because the characters are average, shall we say, and all the other characters are heightened. Do you therefore need to play them down? So it show them being dragged along into this new crazy world?
Nat and Keith, you mean? Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm really interested in working with differentiation between the two, between the cast of the five, so you really can see that there's something really not right with these three people in whites that have come into their life, and that actually these characters really do need the help, and also they are being taken on this journey, which actually, if you had a bit more rationality, you maybe might not go along with the person who's jumped out of the wall.
They're easily owned, aren't they, in a strange way?
Exactly.
I was talking to Shauna, and she was talking about the fact that actually Nat and Keith are slightly more thoughtfully written now, but actually the dynamic in their relationship, such as it is a little bit more overtly drawn. Is that fair to say? Because it's marvellous that you've got the new version of the script and you've been in the old version of the script. These subtleties, are they? There's something you've obviously got to bring out, but it seems to me that when you were in the show last year, and forgive me, I'm putting words in your mouth, but in the show last year you were thinking about it, and obviously, and you were observed thinking about it clearly, because Hannah then thought you're exactly the right person to direct it. But do you think that some of the things you learned from last year aren't necessarily relevant now because things have moved on anyway? I mean, there's that element of bringing with you what you have thought about it and the fresh.
Do you mean in relation to Nat and Keith?
Yes, although to the whole thing, but yes, Nat and Keith in particular. I
think actually it's interesting putting on my director's hat, because it means that I'm coming at the Nat and Keith part of the show from a very different angle, because I wasn't really part of the direction or creation of their scenes. You were the incomers, weren't
you, last year?
Yeah, so I was more part of the realising the Friends characters and the choreography around the Friends. So actually I do kind of come with a fresh hat for Nat and Keith.
Oh, that's a very good point, yes.
And also with the new script and everything like that, once I actually took a deep kind of look at it, I kind of came to my own kind of ideas and how they could play it. Because I wasn't actually really that involved with their creation of their scenes earlier. So.
And also, Shauna was saying that Jamie, who plays Keith, was a fairly late arrival in the cast, almost immediately.
Yes, totally.
Just at the start, and so he was. There wasn't a chance for that relationship to be developed through rehearsals as there is now. So this is a fresh start all round.
Exactly.
What would you say is the biggest challenge for you? The biggest surprise for you then as well, and what's been I suspect the easiest thing must be the choreography, because that's sort of your bread and butter.
Sure, yeah.
So the biggest surprise and the biggest challenge, are they different? I hope you don't mind me putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know what the biggest challenge is. I guess the biggest challenge is having different cast members come in. It's a challenge, but it's also fantastic at exactly the same time, so it's hard to say. And essentially giving them the right information so that they can interpret the show, because obviously we all had such an intrinsic knowledge of the show by the end of it, and I kind of want to impart what I knew by the end of Edinburgh onto them.
It's a natural human reaction, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's working. I think it's my me working out how I can bring them into the life of the show, whilst they have never seen the show or worked on the show or know any of the choreography. So I think that's the biggest challenge.
But it's also, but as you say, it's one of those challenges which is also an opportunity, isn't it? Because having Luke, for example, play a totally different Quentin, and he said he doesn't want to be trapped. Not trapped isn't the word I've used. The word trapped, but he's not going to do a carbon copy of Henry's.
Yes, exactly.
Quentin. It's going to be Luke's Quentin, and we shall see what that is.
Yeah.
But, I love this. It's like going to your favourite restaurant and discovering they changed the menu.
Yeah.
It will still be good, but it will be different.
Yeah,
Yes.
and exactly, and that's what's been really interesting as well. Like what I was saying before about bringing back the choreography that we used in Edinburgh, but then also then they have a few ideas that they could do this and that, and I'm like, oh wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, that brings it on another step. So I guess it's just remembering that that other people could input and actually make it even better, rather than just trying to recreate what we had and me trying to work out what we could add on to make it better. Actually, I guess using them for what they bring to the show, because they're completely fresh eyes on the idea of the show. So
Has it been a surprise for you? Because that was a challenge.
Yeah.
I just wondered, even just
Surprise.
picking up the script and thinking, without giving anything away, this is different.
Yeah.
You can see the old Quentin in this, presumably.
Yeah,
but it is a different. Well, you said version 2, didn't you? So,
Yeah. A surprise. I don't know if it's a surprise, but I guess it was the first time that we had a read-through that I was really surprised by, how much it had changed, but for the better, I guess.
Enhanced, tweaked, and
Yeah.
polished. Yes.
I guess I was surprised by the new songs and how much they added to the show, and how
right, good.
how interesting it now was as an arc of a story. And then there's been moments in rehearsals where I've been surprised by little tiny moments that have been taken out, but actually for the better. And it's kind of you think, it's actually really surprising that that's been taken out, but it makes the show better. Yeah, you can see why.
It's the old.
So
It's Mark Twain, isn't it, about killing your babies?
Oh, sure.
You slave over writing in his case, but then sometimes you have to edit stuff away, and it is for the better, but it's a very hard thing to do. Because I was heartbroken when Henry told me that Everything Is Fine, which is one of my favourite songs from the original score, is no longer in it anymore.
No,
it's a beautiful song,
not.
it's a wonderful song, it's not in there anymore. I think that song is almost an anthem for the 21st century. About trading off your humanity for all the lovely shiny devices. I think, well, there we are then.
Yeah.
So, yes, but on the other hand, I'm very delighted to hear you say the new songs are even better and have a function as well as being delightful in their own right. So.
Exactly. That's... Yeah, I think that's the big surprise of the whole show, is it's a more of a rounded arc of a show, rather than, like you said, being a play with a few musical songs in there.
So you can see the development of everyone involved, including Henry as well. He's very honest. He's been studying and learning how to improve his skill and art. Although I think he's got such raw creative power. I think it's awfully good. So.
Yeah. Well, now he's been able to merge those two together with these kind of fantastic driving songs with a very with a good journey arc of a show, I guess. But without becoming formulaic, of course. Yes.
Because it was that freshness, I think, made Quentin so exciting and different. It wasn't. It was a musical, but it wasn't a Broadway musical. In the sense it didn't fall into any of the traps. Which is so often
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. It's been a delight talking to you, and to hear about the. Your changing hats, shall we say, but also about how you've been grappling with movement. Movement is such. It's a dreadful thing to say, but it's a forgotten stagecraft in a way, isn't it? And I love the fact you are putting it in the heart of this show and showing what everyone knows dance makes things dynamic and vibrant and powerful, as we said, but the very fact that actually it can underscore a character or mean, well, if a picture means 1,000 words, then presumably a movement, a well-chosen movement, can mean 1,000 spoken words.
Yeah, and I truly believe that as well. I'm very much, everything can move, everything should move. And it can really, exactly, and it brings such dynamism and vibrancy to a scene.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I look forward very, very much to seeing this, and I look forward to looking at the movement on stage. Actually, it will be a masterpiece for the eyes, even like a crick neck, as it's constantly moving.
Nice, wonderful, thanks.
I read it in your diary that you think I'm a disaster. And sometimes when we cook spaghetti, you wish I'd finish faster. I'm sometimes not that sensitive, you're sometimes not that nice. And maybe this relationship is not a masterpiece. Oh, I'm not very good for you, and we're not very good together. But you said you'd be mine, and that's quite hard to find. So in spite of it all, let's be not very good forever.
I'm Felix Denton, and I play friend 1, so I'm kind of dancing, movement, singing, some speech as well.
Good, that's a good roundup.
I'm a similar role to Felix. My name is Lydia Costello, and I'm friend 2.
I've got to ask immediately, Felix, if I may, your surname. It's
Denton.
It's not a million miles away from a certain character in the,
No,
in the piece.
I
Is that
know.
you're not no relation?
No, not
to
at
a-
all. No, actually, Caldy, I know her, and then she told me about it, and she said the Quentin Denton show. I said Denton, what? As in my surname? She was like Denton, and
Yeah,
it was
close,
really
isn't it?
surprising.
Yes.
And people keep asking me, "Oh, is that because of you?" And I'm, no, actually,
Oh, say
nothing.
yes.
No, it was that before.
I was talking to Henry earlier today, and I asked him if Quentin's middle name was Edwin, because he would be Quentin Edwin Denton.
Yeah.
First of all, which sounds great, but then his initials would be QED. It sounds fantastic. However, let us talk about your roles. Now, it's a delight to talk to you both, and it seems right that I should be speaking to you both, because you're inextricably linked, aren't you? What was the brief that was given to you in the role of the friends? Because they have a very distinctive, unusual role in any piece,
Yeah.
and certainly in this. I mean, would you care to describe how you see the role?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I kind of see it as I'm not a human. I'm like a programmable robot, and it's only when I'm programmed that maybe a human characteristic would come out, and maybe not. So yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like a blank canvas,
Yes.
in a way.
An AI, but more A than I, perhaps.
Yeah.
Because what's lovely is the fact that they were described to me last year, because I was lucky enough to see the show in Edinburgh, as characters from a Dr. Seuss book kind of thing. And I think that's actually very right. You know, there's sort of the characters who hang around the Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
That's a dynamic which I think is at least partially homaged in Quentin Denton. But I love that character. That's your characters as well. That they come to life when Quentin comes to life, and Quentin is all about owning the stage, and you are there to help him own that stage. But everything you do is in synchronicity, isn't it? You dance together,
Yeah.
and certainly last year it was a case of everything was a mirror image of each other.
Yeah.
Is that still carrying on now, would you say? And how easy is that for you? You
Yeah.
know, how symbiotic are you with each other? Do you think and feel the same way yet, or do you think 3 weeks of rehearsal will help?
I think 3 weeks
Yeah,
of
I
rehearsal
think
will
it
help
will, yeah.
because we kind of didn't really know each other that well before the rehearsal. So I think once
You
we
will.
start, we will eventually.
I
But
feel like already, what have we had? How many rehearsals? A few.
like 3, 4.
Yeah, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Already I kind of feel I know you better than perhaps I would
Yeah.
have.
And we do move
Given,
quite
yeah.
similarly, actually.
Oh, do you? Now, that
Yeah.
must be important, because people do have different physicalities,
Yeah.
don't they, and different movements. But you've discovered that the way that you approach movement is
Definitely.
quite
Yeah.
similar.
I think so.
Yeah.
We're both contemporary dancers.
Which must help.
Trained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good,
So,
they're with the right people then.
Yeah.
Great.
yeah. So we've both got that contemporary
Yeah.
essence.
Also, I think because we're both, I think the characters could come from a dance background or more of an acting background or whatever, but because we both come from a dance background, we approach everything maybe from a similar angle.
Yeah. Same with Caldy as well.
Yeah.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
because she was one of the dancers last year. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, bearing in mind your choreographer and your director all one and the same.
Yeah.
Was in the show last year in one of the parts that you're in.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind they are sort of the same part twice. Is that intimidating in any way, or is it actually really rather marvellous? Because if there's a role that she must understand better than anyone, it must be the role of the friends and helpers and
Yeah.
dancers.
Yeah.
I think what we're definitely working on is working with our suggestions as well, because we haven't really embodied the characters yet, and Caldy has. That some of the ideas that she comes up with might what she did before might be blocking what she wants to do. So if we just think of something that comes straight into our head through improvisation and we give it to her, then she can work with that because it's different and it's new. So
But also she'll understand you because you're using the same language in a way, aren't
Yeah.
you? Which, not everyone has dance in their soul.
No.
I mean, one look at me and you can see that it died when Glenn Miller did. But it's interesting that I love the fact that you've got this immediate connection straight to the top, as
Yeah.
it were. You've got the red telephone that
Yeah.
goes straight to the director.
I think more than intimidating, it's probably helpful, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, do you see the characters as malevolent, or do you see them as funny, or a little bit of both? Because they do what Quentin requires them to do, and what Quentin requires them to do isn't necessarily for the good of humanity exactly. But they are very funny. They're very chirpy, very up. They are, they are bundles of energy, or so it seems. Do you have a view, or do you? I mean, I'm talking for you here. I'm sorry, but you also said you saw them as sort of empty vessels to be filled.
Yeah, I kind of see them as their reason for existence, as far as they're concerned, when they can actually acknowledge how they're feeling, is for Quentin. So if Quentin wants them to be in a good mood and positive and backing up what he's doing and what he's saying, then they will be happy because that's what he said. So
they draw their sort of power from him almost.
Yeah.
They are filled by whatever it is he's filled by. And goodness knows. Do you said robots, do you see them as robots?
I mean, robot's like probably the wrong word, but maybe the closest.
Yeah, I think I think you're right.
The closest.
But definitely not human.
No, and funny, I was having this very discussion just now, actually, which is because the word robot's been used a lot today, but I'm wondering if people mean the word robot to mean android, or whether they mean robot to mean other, non-human kind of thing. And I quite like because, funny enough, I must tell you this, when I saw it in Edinburgh, I interpreted the characters as being sort of angelic. Maybe bad angels, perhaps, but sort of angels coming down from whatever kind of strange heaven they came from, rather than being robots who were sort of turned on. But I appreciate the script's moved on a bit as well. But I'm just genuinely interested because everyone has a different interpretation.
I guess.
And that's what I love about it. It's quite an enigmatic show, isn't it? It doesn't leave doesn't answer all its questions.
No.
In fact, it answers practically none of them.
Yeah.
I think we kind of don't have a gender either, which takes the humanity out of it more.
Are you still in boiler suits, do you happen to know?
Yeah, we are.
That's a very unflattering look in a way, isn't it?
Yeah,
but
like,
for dancing.
It's very neutral though.
I think it's good, because it's just takes away any gender and we're definitely not females. We are.
on the stage.
Yeah, our characters we don't know about gender.
It's funny because Henry was saying in another conversation I had with him that he's a great fan of a group called Devo, sort of progressive rock, I think. But they all turn up in boiler suits, which is where he sort of borrows some of the idea from. And he says what it looks like they've been working scientifically to create their music. And a white dungaree does have that kind of sort of austere laboratory feel about it. And that sort of ties in almost with the possible robots, but certainly the non-gender. I like what you're saying. It all ties in with this kind of created in some way avatar, I suppose, that someone's pumping life into you somehow. But
and just hearing you say that actually makes me think that we're almost like aliens. In a way.
Yeah, well, certainly that's an interpretation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Aliens with a
like we're not
collection
from
of
that
dungarees.
planet. Yeah. Exactly.
I think there's one bit as well where we form a calculator. You probably remember.
There's a number called Numbers.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Yes.
Yeah. So in that bit, because when we were doing like character analysis and stuff, for that bit I was thinking, what's my objective? And it was like to perform the data. So that's kind of how they would think.
So are the numbers up? Are the numbers down?
It's not data they see as kind of maybe that's the closest thing to an emotion that they have.
Is your favourite number 5? That used to be one of the lyrics. I don't know if it survived, but
I'm not sure.
It's a pity.
No, it is. Yeah, it is.
What's your favourite number? Is it 5?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, I love that.
Is it
That's so beautiful.
Yeah,
we're the backing for that.
So now it's interesting because you say you do the backing, and that's the other role, isn't it? But you do have the trappings of the traditionally female singers sort of backing the lead singer in a pop group.
Yeah.
Do you see it in that way as well?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Because when we're backing, we are quite kind of like girl fans, you know?
Yeah, we are.
You're moving your head, by the way. You're getting that kind of eye.
Like little screaming girl fans.
Yeah,
I guess you could say. So
nicely put.
Yeah.
So, has anything about the script or the roles surprised you? It doesn't have to be your roles, actually. It could be anything about the piece. Because it's a curiously subversive piece. I mean, let me ask you a different question slightly, although come back to that, which is, but you're both young, you're delighted to know, that will pass, unfortunately, but it's a very contemporary piece. It's by a young man, you are a young cast, it is about now, there's a question about trading humanity for devices, shall we say, and the eternal search for being able to find potentiality in oneself and then achieve it, if you want to look at it in those ways. We all know the economic situation at the moment is simply appalling for young people. For that, I'm very sorry. I don't own a bank, by the way, so I can't help. Well, probably do actually. We're all nationalised, aren't they? But I own lots of banks, apparently, or I did do for a while. Does it speak to you as a contemporary piece, and does it speak to you individually as something that you understand? Does it seem subversive and angry to you, or does it just seem funny? Or forgive me,
You go.
I'll just carry on talking until you speak.
I think kind of, definitely funny, but definitely there are strong meanings, and maybe it's not really kind of anger, but it's not done in an aggressive way. It's funny, and it's like the audience can come in and they can take from it what they can just be entertained and take the humour and the funniness and the singing and the dancing.
You can read it that way if you want.
Yeah, or they can take the more like slightly cynical side and see what it's about. And I think from reading up about it before the audition and stuff, I had an idea of it in my head, and then it was not even until we started rehearsing that I think I could fully understand the I still don't fully probably, but understand really what's actually going on. And I didn't know there was kind of so much depth to what was happening.
There's a lot of depth.
Yeah. And it's like an onion with lots of layers, isn't it?
Yeah.
You take off one, there's another one.
Yeah, and I really like that about it.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Like, I think it was the first script reading that we had, and I remember some of the guys who were in it before, who did the show before, Henry basically just said what it was about, like, about what you said about searching for happiness, searching for that, what life should be.
And can it ever be?
Yeah, and can it ever be, exactly. And, it just, when we reread the script, he portrays it really cleverly.
And maybe you must tell me, because I've never, forgive me, I'm not a performer, I'm a very boring man in real life, as you've just discovered. But, rehearsals, really creative environment, isn't it? It's a nurturing environment, a creative environment. You can try things, see if they work, working with other people, the collaborative atmosphere. Presumably that really, I'm saying what must seem self-evident to you, but probably isn't understood by most people who just merely go and see plays and don't think about how they come about. It is this exploring of the text, exploring of the layers. You've been uncovering the layers. You did the background. You've been reading the script. You've been looking at it in different ways, and then you go into that room with other people who've been doing exactly the same thing, or may have been in the early version of a show, and everyone's got an idea, and you've got to find a way of getting all those ideas onto the page, hopefully to make a really rich broth.
Yeah.
He said, mixing his metaphors, so now you've got soup on a page, but you get the idea. Is that, are the other actors bringing to the table helping your interpretations, and vice versa?
Yeah,
definitely.
And as I said, it wasn't until we started rehearsing that I could actually start understanding the show and understanding the characters. And I think, it's great. I like the creative atmosphere, and everyone's kind of chipping in, and
Yeah.
It's a meeting of equals, isn't it?
Sorry?
A meeting of equals.
Yeah.
It feels like that as well. Because obviously we're new to the show.
Yeah.
But it's.
But I don't feel so new at the same time.
Exactly. I feel.
It's almost like they have gone about this next one with a fresh pair of eyes, basically. So that's what makes it really collaborative. And it's nice to have a bit of both elements, new and...
Well, it is, isn't it? I mean, in real life as well, that you can't rely on the old knowledge, but you can't rely purely on the new knowledge.
No.
You need a bit of the old and a bit of the new together.
Yeah, that's good.
I speak as a middle-aged man. I'm trying to do that, you see. So, but also, as you investigate and discover your characters and each other's characters as well, across the cast.
Yeah.
I was talking with several of the other members of the cast and crew, the team so far, and everyone's talking about movement. Movement is such an important part of this, and obviously, as the dance characters, if you like, that's a dreadful way of describing you, but it is so much of what you are and what you do in this, underscoring through the power of movement. Actually, are you finding, and are you watching others learning about movement? Because not all actors see movement; they don't always figure it out first. As one of the things they need to sort of bear in mind to help identify their character. But I know very much the atmosphere in there at the moment is let's make physicality so much of who we are.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think this is the most, the people from this are the most mixed out of all the projects and everything
Yeah.
I've done, it's always been with dancers, or even if there's text work, character work, it's always from dancers. So it's really interesting seeing actors work and seeing their expertise. It's really interesting.
And vice versa, they must be seeing things in you, who trained first in dance before drama, that you bring, that movement is so much more of your thinking.
Yeah.
I remember Shauna saying that how hands-on we are.
Yeah.
Because Cowdy gave us a task, and instantly we were just, throwing
Touching
her
her,
around.
throwing her
and,
around.
Oh, right.
like,
Yeah.
I
so-
suspect she, who comes from the drama end rather than the movement end, I think, would find that refreshing, but different.
Surprising,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think,
Now she's used to
happy
it.
about
But at first, it was a bit of a...
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So you spend your time flinging each other around marvellously.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind, I've seen the size of your rehearsal room. It's relatively small and it's got concrete walls.
Yeah,
You want to be
that
careful.
one.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Well, what are you looking forward to most about moving to the West End? Is this one of your sort of first West End shows, or have you vast experience under your belts?
No, this
This is my first West End show.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. My most probably theatrical thing I've done as well. So
Well,
Yeah.
the Arts Theatre is, it couldn't be closer to Leicester Square, is it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's right in the heart of London.
yeah.
It is.
And you should get a fantastic atmosphere because it's the 10 o'clock in the evening show, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you'll get other actors coming out of their shows, and of course
That's true.
the brighter young things. I still include myself in that. Who want to go and see shows at that time of night, which have got such sort of vivacity about them. Vivacity seems to be the word, and you both demonstrated that in this conversation. So, I just wanted to say thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you.
And for Musical Talk about your roles, your approach to your roles, and actually this marvellous world of expression through movement, which is it's I appreciate it, but I don't get it. I couldn't do it. So what you do is a closed book to me, and yet it sort of brings everything to life. So it's marvellous. So thank you very much
thank
for talking.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Numbers, numbers, numbers tell me everything I ever need to know. Numbers can be high, and they are the best numbers. Other numbers up, other numbers down, 'cause numbers make the world go round. Other numbers up, other numbers down, 'cause numbers make the world go round. What's your favourite number? Is it 5? Is it 5? What's your favourite thing about being alive? Is it poetry or piety or aiding your society? If you don't like ambiguity, can't tell ugliness from beauty, take my hand, learn where you stand, 'cause numbers make the world go round. Come on everybody and buckle your pants, time to do the number dance. One, two, three, four numbers. How much have I still to prove? Woo! Numbers. They dictate my every move. Music is only numbers making sound. 'Cause numbers make the world go round. Shh. Numbers make the world go round. Other numbers up, other numbers down. 'Cause numbers make the world go round. Na 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 na. Numbers, 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 no, 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 numbers, numbers, numbers.
Musical Talk.
Yeah.
Well, there we have it. I was talking to Luke Lane, Shona Riley, Caldonia Walton, Felix Denton and Lydia Costello, who, between them, make up a fair representation of performers, dancers and other important people in this new, reborn version of the Quentin Denton Show. So, how can you see it? That's a tremendously good question. I'm glad you asked. It's on between the 16th of May, which at the time of broadcast of this episode is next week, right up until the 28th of May at the theatre known as Above the Arts, which is the Arts Theatre in Great Newport Street, right in the centre of town, right next to Leicester Square, and literally about 4 footsteps away from Leicester Square tube station. It's so easy to get to. The performances start at 10 o'clock every evening and last for 1 hour and 10 minutes, which means you'll be released at about 10 past, 11, which still makes it perfectly possible to get home by tube. And the website for that? Go to artstheatrewestend.co.uk or telephone 020 7836 8463. Or if you prefer, you might like to go to the producer's website, that's Hannah Elsey, and you can find her on hannahelsey.com. I hope you've enjoyed Musical Talks episodes as we've watched how Quentin Denton has developed from the great Edinburgh show to, I hope, an even greater London show. I think it's been fantastic to talk to the people behind it in all aspects of this new production and in its previous productions to find out how shows develop, because they surely do. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating, of course, so why not come along and see the show in London? As I say, it's on from the 16th to the 28th of May. But for the time being, that's the end of this, I hope, super-packed episode of Musical Talk. And so, as you know, there's only one word that really sums up that release from listening, and that's this one. Goodbye. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our brand new website, musicaltalkpodcast.weebly.com, or subscribe to us on iTunes, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, at musicaltalkthos. This episode of Musical Talk edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2016, except for the songs where the copyright remains with Henry Carpenter. And my thanks go to Henry for allowing us to play those songs and those extracts of songs in today's programme.
Bring in the brain machine!
There was a possible interpretation, but they were in some way sort of fallen arches. They weren't fallen arches at all. There was a possible interpretation, but they were fallen angels.